Welcome back, everyone, to the Broker Room Podcast. I'm Michael Simon, and today I'm being joined by Jose Entriken out of the Bay Area in Oakland, California. Welcome, Jose.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Glad to have you here. And, compared to many of our guests here, Jose has a more unique story. It's that he started on the commercial and investment side before making a strategic switch to residential real estate, where he's already closing strong in his first year while bringing a sharp investment mindset to help buyers navigate the market. So, Jose, thank you again for joining. What I would like to do is start with your story here at the beginning. You started in commercial and investment real estate during a tough market, then transitioned into residential. So, take us through that journey, how it started, and what prompted the switch to get you to where you are today.
Yeah. Um, well, for starters, I'm a realtor with the Guy Bloom Group and serving buyers and sellers across Alameda, Oakland, Berkeley, and San Francisco. I'm a UC Berkeley grad, and I came up through investment sales, as you mentioned. And I've really built my practice around community. And so, my domain is literally ilovealameda.com, and it's part of our ethos here on our team. So starting in investment sales, really was about seeking an opportunity that could help me grow and learn as I'm in the field and able to assist others in building wealth. And I think that's why most of us join real estate, why we invest into real estate is to build wealth, obviously. But then there's also a knowledge gap for so many people that do want to start early, or for those business owners that are maybe looking to retire or find something that's a little bit more passive, a bit more hands off. And those were the type of clients that I was working with, either early investors or small business owners, and then started working my way up.
Mhm. Yeah, and what was that experience like? And, how would you say it's shaped and serve the way excuse me, how does it shape the way you serve residential clients today?
Yeah, so that was a real journey. I worked on land development projects or land sales that could become development projects, specifically with an angle around hospitality and gas stations or service stations.
Mhm.
I also worked on multiple service stations as investments and listed my first property in the industrial warehouse zone. So that was more of the commercial and industrial um, segment. And so I really was kind of all over the place due to the fact that I was working with a high level VP in our company, and I'm kind of following him everywhere that he went. We also dabbled in retail and offices, some residential within the multifamily space, and then multifamily buildings over 30 units. So really kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, serving all of the San Francisco Bay Area, all the way as far as like Manteca. So wherever the opportunity arose, that's kind of where our team was, and I was really lucky to have an opportunity to learn from the ground up.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds it. And when it comes to, I guess, the balance, I know you're primarily on the residential side now, but do you still do any other, commercial or investment here and there?
I still do dabble with commercial investments, and I think that that also was kind of what helped me to transition into residential, because learned what my passion was, and a big part of that is housing. And I realized how much housing matters and how much it affects our health outcomes, right? Our educational outcomes, and how successful we could potentially be in regards to our access to opportunities and higher education. So I knew that I wanted to still continue working in that residential space, but I also wanted to work with investors and people that are either already building their portfolio or have an existing portfolio. And since I had already created somewhat of a client base or a book of business, I wanted to continue nurture those relationships. So still working in the commercial space from time to time with properties that are multi-use. So maybe they'll have a residential component as well as a commercial retail component as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great strategy to have, especially, all those relationships that you had built up over the years, like you said, being able to nurture them and maybe even exploring new business opportunities as well. So that's an incredible path, that you created there for yourself, for your practice. And, zooming back in a little bit now that you're mostly on the residential side, what does a typical day to day look like for you now as primarily a residential agent in the Bay Area?
Yeah, that's a great question. The days are all different. My Mondays tend to be very meeting heavy, kind of getting back into the work week, tying up any loose ends from the week prior,
Mhm.
and then setting up the week, whether that's with appointments with clients, setting up tours, open houses, working on our upcoming listings or listings that are already just hit market. And then another part of it is depending on what kind of passion projects or projects that we're working on with clients. Right now, we're working on a property and really assessing the feasibility of converting it back into a single family residence. So this week, my day to day has included meeting with city planning department and getting an understanding as to whether or not we could be permitted to accomplish our goal, meeting with an architect and walking our clients through what that process looks like. And so, every day is different. I think that's one of the things that brought me to real estate and something that I really enjoy. And had I not had that commercial background, I think I would probably shy away from certain projects and certain client types. So yeah, I hope that was answering your question.
No, no, absolutely. And yeah, like you said, every day is going to be different, but that's a great example of what, just one day can be like. And, that property in particular, what does it function as right now where you're trying to convert it?
So currently, it's a 3 unit home or a 3 unit property with a junior ADU as well. It's a waterfront property. And I'm working with clients that are looking to really establish some roots and build some long-term wealth in that home. And so the potential there is pretty great. There's the value opportunity is to to build equity in this home and maybe put in 4 to 500K, but be able to make that same amount in maybe 5 or 10 years when they decide to sell.
Yeah.
It's a craftsman, and we have a lot of appreciation and affinity for our classic homes here in the Bay Area. So it's always nice to, it's always fun to learn a bit more about the architecture and how the cookie is made, how the cookie crumbles, as they say. And I think this is one of those projects where it will, once it's done, it will stand out as a trophy property.
Yeah. Yeah. And then from there, who knows, maybe you'll get more, just like it. And again, you'll have that experience, that education to do that for other clients as well. And then, the process, I can imagine it's probably pretty tedious having to go through the city and all that. Do you have a rough time frame you think on when something like that would be completed?
Yeah, so a project like that would take anywhere from 6 to 8 months. 6 months is being
Oh,
a little
wow.
ambitious, but it's doable, especially if everything's timed right. And 8 months is probably a little bit more realistic.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, it does sound like an excellent opportunity, and that's actually going to bring me into my next, segue here. I want to talk about some trends. So, if we take a look right now, just in the Bay Area and maybe some broader metro markets, what are some of the biggest trends and challenges, you and your clients are facing currently?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. There's persistent inventory constraints here in the East Bay market and in the Bay Area in general. Of course, the Bay Area is right now being impacted further because of the tech boom that's taking place. Um, and so these inventory constraints are a lot more pronounced in the SF metro area, but we also feel that here in Alameda, even more so at the entry level price. And then we're also seeing quite a bit of competition and inventory constraint at the 1.5 to $2 million buyer segment, which is
Mhm.
probably the most competitive and requires the the most sharp strategy in order to really get someone into the home that they're looking for, specifically looking at what school districts, right, which is really important here in Alameda. A lot of people move to Alameda for the school, the safety, walkability. And so when we take all those factors into account, that 1.5 to 2 million segment can be really challenging if you're only narrowing it down to certain top neighborhoods with the best schools. Um, and then we're also seeing an ADU development interest, which is continuing to grow. We're currently actively helping clients assess those opportunities. And we're also noticing that sellers are more informed and expect more of a data-driven guidance, especially because we have so much access to information online nowadays.
Hmm.
People, whether they're buyers or sellers, they're coming to the to us as real estate professionals with already some knowledge. Most of the time, it's pretty, it's a really great foundation. And then sometimes we do have to kind of undo some of the miseducation that we tend to encounter in our media.
Yeah, as a former financial advisor, I've been there in a similar situation where, a client comes in and they think they're quote unquote educated, but sometimes there can be some misunderstandings, to say the least. So I can definitely understand and appreciate that. And I'm glad you mentioned how, there's so much data that's currently available today as well for others to do research on, because that's going to bring me into my next topic, my favorite topic, which is the use of AI. And, when we originally spoke about this, I had mentioned that real estate, especially residential, has been a bit slower to adapt AI compared to other industries. So let me ask you this. How have you seen AI impacting your practice so far, whether it be in research, client communications, market analysis, or even on the workflow side with contract prep or lead handling?
Yeah. Um, like many industries, the real estate industry is also benefiting from the use of AI, and a big part of it is on the listing and copywriting side, right? So make sure that what we're putting in is accurate. Uh, that does take some human supervision, but
Mhm,
once we really narrow that in and um, get specific about what we're asking the AI to do, we can have clear uh, copywriting and marketing that is uniform across all platforms, despite whatever those limitations are for each one of those syndications. And then we use AI for, client communications. Sometimes it really helps to write something out and then put it through AI just to make sure that it's clear, right?
mhm.
So maybe we're coming from a frame of mind where something seems self-explanatory, if we put it through AI, it can help us to break that more complex um, idea into something that's a little bit more digestible for everyday people. And then market strategy preparation, keeping all of that information, all the data, all in one place. AI ultimately serves as a second brain, a brain that doesn't forget. And
Mhm.
so when we're working with multiple properties, it's for me, what I've noticed is I really leverage AI in property inspection reports, summaries, and understanding. So even though I'm reading all of those inspection reports, I'm able to put them into a database and able to reference that a lot more efficiently and accurately to assist clients.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen many similar sentiments of how others have used AI for their practices as well. And, in addition to a lot of like the marketing and the research and the analysis, is there anything where you feel like could be improved, where you would like to see AI do like a better job or be of more effect in your practice? Or even, I can extend that to just the industry too, for that matter.
Yeah, it's tough because ultimately the human relationship is irreplaceable, and people don't care about data and information as much as they care about the connection that you're creating with them.
Hmm.
And so I think what the future of AI will be is um, a personalized AI where people are interfacing with technology and it starts to learn who you are and maybe even mold itself so that you're communicating in the same language, right? And I think that
Mhm.
that's where a human we've trained ourselves to do that. We do that all the time, and I do think that AI is catching up in that regard and helping people where they're at, right? Like meeting people where they're at and guiding them in their communication style to whatever that next step can be. And, I think I also have to mention that, AI is not the answer to everything. AI can also encourage our already implicit biases. And so, as long as we are training our AI to be direct um, and being a bit critical, right, with us, like being honest as opposed to telling us what we want to hear, I
Mhm.
think we'll be on the right track.
Yeah, I agree too. Really, what it comes down to is balance because, yes, AI is here to stay. It's not going away anywhere, but we also want to make sure that we're not overdoing it as well because no matter how advanced it's going to get, we're always going to need that human component, especially in a place like real estate. I mean, whether you're buying your first home or, a really expensive piece of commercial property for investment purposes or even a multi-home for investment purposes, whatever it may be, that's always going to be a very big emotional decision. And there's just a gap there that AI simply will never be able to fill. It can certainly help streamline the process, make it go more faster, more efficient, but the human touch will always be needed. And just getting back to what I said about the balance, though, I do like how it has come a long way in the fact that it can handle some conversations to an extent. Like, let me ask you this. When my AI assistant originally reached out to you via email, did you automatically think, you were talking to AI, or did you feel like that was a real human being?
Mm, that's a good question. I think I probably assumed that was a real human being.
Mm. And I get that quite a lot. There's only ever been about like two or three people that, have asked if that's the case or not. I mean, I always tell them regardless, but I like that because it shows a real example of how far it's come because it still has that personal touch where, it takes the criteria I'm looking for, folks who are interested in coming on the podcast and talking about their practice, their journey, and how AI has affected the industry. And then it gauges their interest too, based on the conversation. And then if they're up to actually having the meeting, they get put on my calendar. And up until that point, I haven't done a single thing. But again, we want to make sure that we're still having the human touch. So once they're booked on the calendar, I want to make sure I take over at that point so I can formally introduce myself. So that way you can put a face to a name, you know who you're going to be talking to, what you're going to be talking about, so on and so forth. I wouldn't have, the AI just book the meeting and be like, okay, you're set for this time and date with the podcast, good luck. That
Yeah,
takes away that human touch, and then it just doesn't set up for a good experience. And because we don't know each other, it can come off as a bit sketchy to say the least. So that's why we got to make sure we're still keeping the human component there as well.
sure.
Yeah. And so, as we're coming up on time here, what I like to do always towards the tail end is take a look at the future. So, if we say, let's say the next 6 to 12 months, where do you want your practice to be? Do you have any specific, goals, milestones you're looking to achieve?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So over the next 6 months, my goal is to assist another 5 sellers in maximizing their opportunities in today's real estate market here in the East Bay. A big part of that is education. So even though we're maybe 1 to 2 years out of actually selling the home or even bringing the home to market, I love the opportunity to meet with these people now and get ahead of that, that major life event. And then we've got quite a few awesome initiatives that we're working on here at Keller Williams and our team at Place. We're doing some charity events. We're currently working on gathering school supplies for kids. And then we've got quite a few community events coming up. We've got our annual pool party, and then um, in the holiday season, we've got our annual client appreciation holiday party as well. So all of these things are really community driven, and I think that's part of kind of what I'm about and what got me into real estate. And so I think that's what I'm most excited about.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing stories like that about how, business owners work with their community, especially from an educational standpoint, which is something, we could all certainly, use in today's day and age. And in addition to some of the events that you mentioned, from an educational standpoint, have you ever considered doing something like, do you ever do any seminars or podcasts or anything like that where you just, kind of talk to the public, have some guests on similar to what we're doing?
Yeah, so we host first time home buyer workshops throughout the year. We'll usually host two in-person events, and then we'll also hold online events. And we also host an estate planning and trust workshop. So we partner with um, a local um, attorney here that helps to educate our community, and it's all free.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, those partnerships are key in helping deliver a full client experience. I used to partner with attorneys, CPAs, even some agents as well too, so I know how those are all closely correlated and definitely are going to create a better client experience overall. And then, Jose, as we come up on the tail end here, the question I always like to end with is, for any new agents or investors who are considering just getting started today in this field, even if it is, whether it be residential or commercial, what would be some words of wisdom that you have for them?
Yeah, it's the same words of wisdom that my professors gave me when I was studying real estate at Haas or when I was, coming up through school in my undergrad. It's pick up the newspaper and read. Just understand what your local economy is doing, understand who's who in your market, and and really get to know the people and the community that you ultimately serve, and that will pay back dividends because w- we everybody can look up, something on the information on Google, but if
Mhm.
you come in and you are a trusted source of information and a thought leader, I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely. You can have the best products, the best services, but if they don't know you, if they don't like you, if they don't trust you, you've got nothing. That's all about building that strong foundation in the client relationship there. So fully agree with you in that respect. And Jose, this has been really excellent. Your insight, experience, and the educational content it provided have been all outstanding. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners go to learn more about you, whether it be to just learn more about what you do or perhaps even, work with you?
Yeah, you can visit me at Jose at I love Alameda. Oh, excuse me, I'm giving you my email. It's jose.ilovealameda.com, and then my contact information will be there. Thanks so much, Michael. I appreciate you having me on your podcast and for everything you do.
Thank you, Jose. Certainly appreciate you as well. So you have a good one.
Take care.